talking about newsletters because I did a 3-part series in the last couple of episodes about, the importance of nurturing the customers that you have. And I mentioned newsletters a couple of times, and some of you have reached out and said, I'd love to do a newsletter, but what on earth do I write? What do I put in the newsletter? And, newsletters can take the shape of several different forms. So I don't want you to kind of think, school newsletter to start off with. Newsletters are really about nurturing and about being able to share and to give value to your customers. You want it to be something that they read and that they want to read, they look forward to reading. We all have those newsletters that pop into our inbox and we delete immediately without even opening. And we all have the ones that we look forward to and go, oh, I can't wait to hear what they have to say today. We want to be one of the latter. Yes, we want to be one of the ones that they cannot wait to open. And so in order to do that, you need to not think about your newsletter in terms of it being big and chunky. Nobody's got that kind of time. You don't need to write a whole essay, a whole book. But you also need to make sure that it's not just a series of advertisements put together in an email. Nothing is going to get your people to unsubscribe quicker than just a series of ads that you drop in their inbox every now and then. So the first thing I want you to think about before we actually think about the content that's going to go inside your newsletter is what is going to be your strategy around timing, because consistency is the most important thing when it comes to, putting out content. So if we are going to take the time and effort to put together a newsletter to nurture the customers that we have, or perhaps to nurture those customers whose details we have, but who haven't purchased from us yet, and perhaps they want to be two completely different, sets of newsletters, and that's a whole other conversation. But I want you to think about how you're going to be able to manage to put out a consistent newsletter. Is it going to be something you can do every day? Is it going to be something you can manage every week? Is it going to be something that you can only manage once a month? Is it going to be something you can manage once every 3 months? Whatever it's going to be, stick to that and be consistent with that, and be realistic about what that's going to be for you. Because for some of us, we don't have time to do one every morning. Seth Godin does, but I don't think I do. We're flat out doing one once a month. And when I say we, I mean, that's my team. I'm not doing the newsletter. So it's time consuming. You don't want to underestimate that. Yes, it is going to be work. It is going to be worthwhile. Also, anything worth doing is worth doing well, but don't kind of go, okay, I'll start this Monday and I'm going to do a newsletter every Monday, because that might not happen. So try and think about it in terms of what can you do long term. And if you're thinking about maybe let's do this for 6 months, okay, what can I do for 6 months that will be consistent? One every 6 months? Okay, but be consistent with whatever your choice is. So when it comes to putting the content together for the newsletter, you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. You do not want to sit down at the computer at a blank page and go, what will I talk about today? You want to be sharing the things that have been going on in your business. So you maybe want to share something that's happened behind the scenes. Perhaps you want to share something that personal that's gone on with you this week. Perhaps you've gone away on a trip. Perhaps you've taken some time off. Perhaps you've been innovating a brand new product. You want to be able to make it personal and personable. You want to be able to share. And we've talked about this before, but the newsletter needs to be 80% of sharing and 20% of selling. So don't just kind of put together your newsletter and say, I've got this sale on shirts and this sale on pants and this sale on shoes. No one's going to be reading that. So thinking about things that you have learned over the last little while that you can share that is going to really resonate with the people who are your target market. And if you can go one better and talk to the problem that your customer has, perhaps something has happened in your real life that you want to then share, but that could be a parallel to something that's going on in their life, something that they can connect to, something that they can relate to, and a problem that is getting solved. And perhaps it's getting solved by using one of your products or services. That's okay. You really want to be able to reach your reader where they're at. So I encourage you to think about, and even if this is not, your entire newsletter, think about things that already exist. Perhaps it is that, something did happen to you in the last week or fortnight or month, depending on what you're doing. And perhaps you spoke about it a lot on your Instagram. Can you then get that audio transcribed if that was saved in your highlights, or perhaps it was a live video that you did, can you get that audio transcribed and turned into a newsletter for you? Perhaps it's, you don't want to sit down at your computer and write. Perhaps you can actually just speak into your voice message and then send that to somebody else to type up, or to get it, send it to rev.com to get sent back to you as, copy that you can then manipulate into a newsletter. It doesn't have to be that you sit down at a blank page. So try and think outside the square when it comes to the content that you're going to create for the newsletter. In saying that, you also want to make it interesting. So I encourage you not just to put out newsletter content that's coming straight from your Apple Mail or Gmail or whatever email server that you're using. I encourage you to use something. There's plenty of free products out there that you can use, whether that is Squarespace or MailChimp, or any number of the more pricier ones, ActiveCampaign, Constant Contact, etc. And they will give you the ability to make it look a bit special and to make it look on brand, which is really important. Nobody is going to necessarily read your email and associate it with you and your brand if it doesn't look like you and feel like you and sound like you. So that brand consistency is really important. It's another touch point. It's another way to get in your customer's face and be like, this is us, this is who we are. You get a feel for exactly what is going to happen when you're going to deal with my business, because you've got a feeling for who we are. So, a lot of them are drag and drop and quite easy. And if you put aside 2 or 3 hours just to have a play with no, pressure on yourself to have to get something finalized, but just to play around and see what you can do, you can set up a template, that will take you an hour or two to do in the beginning. But once that template is set up with your fonts and your colors and your styles, all you need to do each week or each fortnight or each month is duplicate that and put in your brand new content. So don't let the technical side of things overwhelm you. In terms of, importing all of your customer details, it can be as easy as, sticking everything in a spreadsheet and then importing it as a file. It doesn't have to be complicated. But if you are having trouble, the fabulous staff at Morgan Media can help you out with the technical side of sending your newsletter. We send newsletters for lots of our different clients on a weekly and fortnightly and monthly basis as well. So we can help you with that. But don't be intimidated by the technology. Even if you don't feel like you have to type out every single email address and that it's going to drive you bonkers every time you have to do it. Upload it, and then people can hear from you every time you send a newsletter without you having to input all of their details. The kind of things I like to talk about in my newsletter. So yes, I like to start off by sharing something that's gone on. So I will share, if we've had something happen in the family, if I've been away, if we've hit a certain milestone in the business, a certain target, if we've had a big win or something to celebrate, then I like to start the newsletter with that. And then I like to have 3 sections that happen after that. Something I have learned, something that I am loving, and then a sale. What's going on? Yeah. So it can be that, those different categories come from content you've already created. Sometimes we just drag and drop from my Instagram things that have happened. We, grab that photo, grab that copy and stick it in the newsletter, because not everybody is going to see everything that you post on social media all the time. So don't feel like, oh, I've already published that, so people won't see it. This podcast, for example, goes out as a YouTube clip. It goes out as highlights on my social media. It also is the podcast. It gets turned into a blog post, which then gets turned into social media captions, and it's the same content. So don't feel like you're repeating yourself and that people will go, oh, she's going on about that again. That's okay. You want to be able to be known for something, and that consistency will help you get known for exactly that you keep going on about. Like me and newsletters. So it's really important that that sharing happens there. So not just selling. I leave the selling to last, but there's no hit and miss around where you put it. You can stick it second. You can stick it first if you want. I wouldn't, but you can if you want. It's your newsletter. You can do what you like. And, think about ways in which you can really build relationships. So the things, my favorite things is, or what I'm loving this month that I put in my newsletter is exactly that. And there's no reason that you need to know that I'm loving the plant section at Bunnings, but it tells you a little bit about me, and that's going to help you know, like, and trust me, so that the next time I do try and sell you something, you can be like, oh, that's the plant lady at Bunnings. and hopefully that will get you across the line. So don't be afraid to share what's going on with you and what's working. And I often find that there are many parallels that are happening in my life that also link to my business. So the newsletter is the perfect place to share that. When I'm sitting down with my coaching clients, I often find that even though they are situated all over the world, from Germany to Canada to the US to here in Australia and New Zealand, the same themes come up consistently. And so I like to talk about that in my newsletter as well, that those consistent themes that keep coming up. And you may have, a couple of weeks where the same kind of thing keeps happening to you. You keep hearing the same kind of conversations. You keep finding yourself hearing the same song or going around the same corner, running into the same people. That kind of thing is, the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, this is content. This is content. You can use this. So I hope that's given you lots of ideas in terms of your newsletter content and has made it a little bit less scary to want to get in touch with your customers and nurture your customers. It's I've just thrown everything at the wall there for you. But if you want some help in terms of, being able to strategically put together a newsletter strategy that is going to really nurture those customers of yours and bring new customers in, we can talk about that as well. This has kind of been a, newsletter for dummies and I don't mean that offensively at all, episode where for those of you who did reach out to me and say, I've never done a newsletter, I don't want to do a newsletter, I don't know how to do a newsletter, what do I put in a newsletter? That's just my thoughts on all of the things that you could stick into a newsletter that would work. And just remember, the things that you know about your business and the things you know about your industry, we take for granted that we know that stuff, but your customers don't. So even just putting out a newsletter where you explain how one of your products is used will be incredibly valuable for your customers. Just talking about a trend or something that's going on in your industry, that won't be known to your customers. So that will be sharing valuable knowledge that you have. Don't underestimate the power of what you have to share, and the newsletter is the perfect place to share that. If you're going to write your own newsletter, put me on your email list. I would love to see it. Take a screenshot of it on your phone, take a photo of it on your desktop, put it on your Insta story and tag me. I'm at Simply Stacey Morgan on Instagram. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I will talk to you next week.